all paranormal. Welcome back to another installment of Strangest Locations.
Edinburgh.
And this is part 2 of Edinburgh.
Yay.
Around 6,000 men were in the rebel army, but only 22% were captured. Over 1,100 prisoners were delivered to Edinburgh after the Covenanters were defeated in the Battle of Bothwell Brig on June 22nd, 1679.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what year that was. So way back in the day, this is going on.
Yeah. So that's 1,100 prisoners in June, the end of June. By June 10th, the number dramatically dropped to 338. Well over half.
Right.
By July 17th, so just 7 days later, it was down to 300. They'd already lost another 38 people.
Right.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I mean, I was bad in history, so they probably went over all this, and I just, don't remember.
Well, we had American history.
Right. Well, this would be Western Civ in college, know. So, yeah.
But the number went back up to 400 when a new arrival of prisoners were brought in. But by August, the number of prisoners was all the way back down to 250. So 400 to 250 from July 17th to August. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This particular prison was brutal. And prisoners were treated with a lot of cruelty. Many people perished due to maltreatment or were executed. The conditions were absolutely appalling. And many regarded as the first concentration camp. Which
that's
is
pretty horrific, right?
Crazy, yeah. The Mackenzie Mausoleum in Greyfriars Graveyard is the final resting place of Sir George Mackenzie in 1691. He was not 300 years old. He was the Lord Advocate for Scotland during the reign of Charles II. He was responsible for the persecution and horrendous treatment of the Presbyterian Covenanters during that period. He requested this burial site because he was very proud of what he deemed as an accomplishment in the persecution of the Covenanters.
Wow.
Yeah. He sounds like a gem.
Right. What's interesting is we have ancestors going back to that time period. With
Charles II?
Yeah, with Charles II. It's not believed that Mackenzie and the Covenanters haunt Greyfriars. There are hundreds of reports of sightings of poltergeist activity, strange phenomenons, sustaining scratches, bites, bruises, being knocked to the ground, being knocked to the ground unconscious, actually.
That's legitimately insane.
How can a ghosty ghost do that? That's pretty bad. And having the feeling of being watched or followed. Even people living near the graveyard are said to be plagued with paranormal activity, from objects moving and breaking to disembodied laughter. That's super creepy.
Disembodied laughter would scare the crap out of me.
Is it because we're in America we don't see all this? I mean, that's super haunted stuff,
We don't see stuff quite as serious.
Yeah. Because there's so much history over there, hundreds of people dying and lots of.
And our country has history too, but not to that extent. We had the indigenous people.
Right. I'm so bad. I can't remember the battles and the days and all that and who was there and whatnot. So history's I can't remember all the names and whatnot. I know I have a general idea of things. But it's hard. I like the history of it, though. I like to hear it and hear, what the paranormal side is. That's why, we're doing this, though. In 1999, a homeless man broke into the Mackenzie's mausoleum. He was looking for some shelter, so he was like, let me break in here. So, which seems to be a bad place. People are dead,
I mean, if you don't have
and this
options.
I get it.
It's shelter.
It's 1999. You're trying to keep dry. There's some bad music on the radio because it's the 90s.
The 90s had great music. What are you talking about? Go ahead.
He tripped in the darkness, and he stumbled on something bumpy, and he was like, oh, what is this, And then he crashed through a weak floorboard. Now, once he crashed through this weak floorboard, he hit some more bumpy stuff, and he flicked his lighter, and you know what he saw? He saw dozens of bodies and skeletons. Not bodies, but skeletons.
Yeah, that's not...
And what it was a plague burial pit that nobody had come across.
Oh.
So it was like just tons of... It's like one of those movie-like scenes, you know, where they see like the spider crawling out of the skull or whatever.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like, ah, you know. And he runs
poor
for
guy
it.
Probably needed therapy for the rest of his life.
I know, but that's pretty creepy. So, this isn't the only time the Mackenzie's mausoleum has been disturbed, and it's said that the paranormal activity has only gotten worse every time it's disturbed.
Ooh.
So I guess it's a large like house type deal where the Mackenzies have all their.
All mausoleums usually like a building that houses like a small building that houses like a family plot, a family burial, not plot.
Right, but this is like going back like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's got to be a lot of people. It's not small. It's like big, you know. So
I'll have to look it up. Put up a picture.
Yeah, we'll put a picture up of it. How's that sound? No promises, but we'll try.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So by the late 18th century, Edinburgh was becoming a growing, thriving community. 2 bridges were built to better facilitate the expansion: the North Bridge and the South Bridge. The South Bridge was a purpose-built shopping street with as much space as possible utilized. There are 120 rooms, or vaults, beneath the surface of the South Bridge, ranging in size. These rooms were used for storage space and workshops for the South Bridge businesses, but only operated as its intended purposes for a relatively short amount of time. Because construction was rushed, it was never sealed properly against water, and the vaults began to flood, causing the vaults to become abandoned. New users came in to adapt and repurpose the vaults as Britain came into its industrial revolution. These living conditions were nothing short of appalling, and crime was rampant. There's also unsubstantiated claims that serial killers Burke and Hare, who we're going to discuss here in a second, in 1828 murdered 16 people, mostly women, of course, and stashed the bodies in the chambers until they could sell the bodies to a surgeon. The craziest part about that story to me is that if it's true, these living conditions were so bad that no one noticed bodies coming through there, and no one noticed any smells. And that's wild to me. Ugh. Rumor has that these vaults are haunted today by the unfortunates of yesteryear. A Mr. Boots can be heard stomping on the cobblestones and throws rocks at people. And there's a child spirit known as Jack that is said to grab the hands of visitors. Investigators have also caught EVPs on multiple paranormal television shows.
Okay, well, that's pretty scary. In the 1900s, the North Bridge widened for expansion. That included a 190-foot tall tower into which the Scotsman newspaper moved their offices in 2001. The newspaper moved and the building was renovated into the Scotsman Hotel. The hotel is said to be home to the House of Spirits, but most famously, a forger and a printer. Not the machine. The person is said to roam the hotel long after falling to death. We looked into it. We can't figure out how he fell to death. He just fell to death.
Falling to his death.
Yeah, he fell to death.
He fell to death.
People also report disembodied footsteps and voices throughout the hotel. So a creepy place to go.
But it is a 5-star hotel, so definitely look into it.
Right?
There is so much more. There's so much more about Edinburgh and Edinburgh's hauntings in Europe. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, about all the hauntings that go on there, not just in Edinburgh either. Scotland overall is very haunted. There's lots of haunted castles, and there's several cryptids.
Right. Well, there's more. It's entirely possible that some of the hauntings going on in Edinburgh happened because of the 2 men that we talked about earlier,
Herrenberg.
who committed a string of 16 murders over the course of 10 months. So it was only 10 months, and they killed a lot of people in 1828. But I actually saw a show on this. It was really good. I see a lot of shows.
You watch
anyway, these two guys, they're like, they go and find cadavers. They dig them up in the graveyard and give them to a professor to do dissections on for students. Like, there was like a, what do you call it, a thing going on where everybody was doing scientific research on anatomy at that point.
Well, Edinburgh was one of the leading places for anatomy research, I believe.
Right. So they got greedy and started just killing people to get bodies because it was getting harder and harder to get bodies.
It was harder and harder to get them legally, and they started cracking down on grave robberies.
Right. So what happened here was William Burke and William Hare were selling the bodies to Robert Knox for dissection in his anatomy lectures. In the early 19th century, Edinburgh was the leading European center for anatomy studies. Demand for cadavers led to shortage of a legal supply. This led to an uptake in body snatching by what they call resurrection men.
Ew.
Yeah. Measures were used to ensure graves were left undisturbed, exacerbating the issue. Eventually, William Hare was offered immunity from prosecution. He confessed and provided details of all 16 deaths, and formal charges were brought against William Burke and his wife. I guess his wife was helping him in it.
I don't think he should have gotten away with that.
No, he ratted him out.
They both should have gone down for it. That's crazy.
He ratted him out. That's what happened in the show. He went home. They were making a lot of money, and he went back to his house, and the police were they weren't waiting for him, but they came up and they got him and the other girl too. But you know, all was not well for the guy that ratted him out. William Burke was hanged on January 28th, 1829, and his body was donated to the medical school. William Hare, who ratted him out, however, made his way to London, where he was thrown into a lime pit, leaving him blind.
Oof.
So I don't know who threw him in there, but someone threw him in there. Legend has it he spent the rest of his life in poverty and begging. So
in London.
Yeah, karma.
Yeah.
You know, he got what he deserved. But yeah, that's nasty. But like you said earlier, they were storing those bodies in the vaults.
That's unsubstantiated rumor. There's no proof that that's what they're doing. It's just something that it's like the legend around the vaults is that they were storing those bodies in the vaults.
Right.
And no one noticed.
Yeah.
How bad was it down there?
Right.
So all of these scary stories, and this not even being all of the hauntings in Edinburgh, there's more hauntings in Edinburgh, really solidifies its place as one of Europe's most haunted places. And all the hauntings in Edinburgh, along with all of Scotland's like world-renowned cryptids, really solidifies it being a strangest location for me.
Right. Absolutely. Well,
and that's all we have for today.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.